identifies the obstacles to democracy and to determine strategies to meet the promise of a vibrant and robust democracy. Taking a look at the political landscape and also looking for opportunities to move reform, whether it's defensive fights at the federal level or moving reforms forward at the state and local level.
Democracy is at risk in the United States. It's something, of course, the founding fathers believed and warned us about, but we come to take it for granted, to think that the United States was different, that we could concentrate on improving our democracy and not worry about maintaining our democracy.
We saw local election officials at the county level across Texas continue to impose the photo ID law as if the Fifth Circuit had not issued any ruling changing it. In North Carolina, we saw 17 counties cut early voting locations and early voting hours after the Fourth Circuit's ruling.
If we are not giving these voters who are deciding a lot of these election outcomes an avenue for constructive change, they're going to opt for destructive change.
People were disenfranchised by the candidates. And one of the things that we really need to work on is the primary system. Why is it that New Hampshire and Iowa are the first two states that dictate who our president will be?
In addition to working closely with movement leaders on the ground that flat out told us, I don't believe in voting, we didn't say you're stupid. We said, that's okay, what do you believe in? And we identified some of the local races and local positions that matter to them, made connections between prosecutors, city council members, aldermen that actually are in a position to meet the demands that they were making.
One of the lessons we learned after we recalibrated is that we are just going to double down on our field work. We're going to make sure Arab Americans are in all 50 states. We focus in 12 primarily, and we're going to just make sure that they continue to get out the vote and that we continue utilizing our integrated voter engagement system to make sure they're engaged throughout the year and not just on election day.
It's not enough to go into a state a month before the election and try to get a polling place on a college campus, because those decisions were made 18 months ago. And we all know this, but I think that's, again, the conversation we have to force with funders, because if we want to create systems that will actually enable us to be heard, we need to invest, and that needs to happen early, and it needs to be with groups who can actually do that work.
The way these court decisions were implemented still resulted in many people being unable to vote. In Texas, there were not only was the voter ID requirement actually still imposed in many locations, there were threats of prosecuting people who signed an affidavit saying they didn't have voter ID if they could get it.
The whole discussion about presidential authority and how much of it we can live with, how much of it is compatible with democratic goals, is unfortunately all too often opportunistic. The title here is The Perils and Promises of Executive Authority, and typically, depending on who the occupant of the White House is, the Democrats might see perils, whereas the Republicans see promise, or the Republicans see promise, where the Democrats see perils.
Protection for specific groups that are going to be especially vulnerable under a system that is not properly designed, or a system in which mistakes are impossible to guard against. It also means including inadvertent penalties or protections against folks who are inadvertently registered, and it means doing the kind of public education so that folks know how to police it for themselves.
The fact remains that this year, all 50 states and a large number of counties engaged with the Department of Homeland Security on cybersecurity processes, including things like vulnerability scans, cyber risk assessments, and that's completely unprecedented.
We went from a 30-day precinct residency requirement to a 22-day state residency requirement. And so now when I look nationally at different states, if you have high provisionals in your state, likely you have a precinct residency or some sort of residency deadline issue.
We hold a lot of power, and I'm energized by the power potential that we have here and within our movement through the allies in the field and what we can do with our power to make and bring about the change that we care about.